Hi, Emma Havison here from the Gentle Touch, and I'm going to talk to you today about the fourth trimester. So, this is a phrase that's becoming more commonly used and quite well known. But I thought I'd start by explaining what it is in case you haven't heard about it, and just to let you know a little bit about what to expect during the fourth trimester. So, a baby is in the womb for roughly 9 months. So, we generally, as you may already know, call that the first, the second, and the third trimesters that a woman is pregnant for. And then after the baby's born, that next 3 months, so when baby is 0 to 3 months old, that period of time there is called the fourth trimester. So it's their first 3 months outside of the womb. So I think it's quite helpful to start by looking at what is happening for everybody during this time. So let's start off with what's happening for baby. So if we look at the environment that they've just come from within the womb, and then we look at what is happening for them outside the womb, it kind of tells us quite a lot about what they might be going through and what they're used to and their preferences. So if we look at, by the time that they're born, they're obviously quite tightly packed in, aren't they? So they're used to that really kind of being held quite tightly by the womb, and they are used to constant movements. Even when the woman is lying down and while she's pregnant, there's still some slight movement going on there. But generally the baby is being used to being moved around quite a lot, that constant kind of methodical movement that we all know that they love outside of the womb. So they're used to being tightly held, and they're used to constant movements. They're also used the sounds that they can hear within the womb are actually quite loud. All the bodily motions that are going on, or the blood swishing and through the arteries, and they could hear the bowels and all sorts of things that are going on inside are actually very, very loud. And the noises that they can hear from outside will be quite muted, but they will definitely be able to hear dogs barking or voices and traffic and loud music and all of these things, but it definitely will be through kind of muted tones. And it's quite dark inside a womb, although you can shine a light and they'll be able to see that. They will be able to see slight kind of light and dark kind of shades, but it definitely is a lot darker than outside. And they will be used to that feeling. Obviously they're naked inside the womb, and they'll be used to that feeling of the amniotic fluid on their skin. So there's just a couple of things to think about how that might feel inside the womb. So of course, when they're born, however they're born, they are suddenly then in this environment that is very, very different. So all of a sudden it's generally quite bright, even if you have tried your best to keep the lights down. It will, over time, over this fourth trimester, the lights will be a lot brighter than they are used to. And there's obviously a definite daylight and nighttime kind of difference over that 24-hour clock. So that'll be very different for them, especially in the summer, or if you live somewhere where it's very sunny. That will be very bright for them, and the glares and etc. Noises will suddenly sound very different, so that barking dog will sound even sharper and even louder, or noisy siblings, and just generally the noises that they'll be able to hear will feel very different. And so that swooshing that they can no longer hear from inside a woman's body will suddenly be gone, and it will be either very, very quiet, which a lot of new parents try and keep it silent for a new baby. So actually that is why it's people use white noise quite a lot to try and mimic those noises of the womb, and that constant kind of background noise. And then they will feel the air on their skin, obviously, so it's very different than that amniotic fluid that they were feeling that sensation before. And they're going to have clothes thrown on them all of a sudden, and a hat. I mean, how bizarre must that feel? So they might feel all scratchy from the material, or it might feel really soft and nice. And then they suddenly have this sort of freedom of movement. So, babies have that startle reflex, the Moro reflex, that makes their arms suddenly startle out. They couldn't do that so readily in the womb. So that stays with babies for a few months after they are born. Hence why babies love to be swaddled. Some babies, I might add, obviously not all of them do, but lots of babies like to be swaddled and they like to be held. So the other thing with being held, we talked about inside the womb them being contained or nicely packed in, because obviously quite tight towards their due date. So when they come out, they like to be held because they can feel your heartbeat. They can hear the kind of vibrations of your voice. When you talk, if you hold your hand on your heart, you can feel, or on your chest, you can feel the vibration of your voice. That is a really comforting thing for babies. And the other thing we talked about was the muted, the light and dark, and the temperature as well. So obviously in a womb, there's pretty much a constant temperature going on. And then outside, like we talked about, them wearing clothes, or they might go into a bath, which lots of babies find bathing really relaxing, but of course then they'll get quite cold as they come out, which is part of the reason why babies start crying commonly when you take them out of the bath, because they might suddenly get a chill. So hopefully that's kind of really helped explain a little bit about where babies have come from and where they've suddenly been. So it must be a bit like culture shock, I always think, how they're suddenly in this brand new world that they know nothing about. All of those comfort things that they had before, the way they were living their life before, is suddenly gone, and they have to get used to this new way of life. Now, some people, as we know, will adapt really easily and really quickly to a new culture or a new way of life or a new way of living. And some people take a little bit longer to get used to something. And it's exactly the same with our mini people, with our babies. Some babies will birth and then come out the other side and just take to this new world that they're living in on the outside and have a really chilled out temperament and just get on with life and be happy and relaxed. Other babies find life a little bit trickier. So we obviously don't know, by saying this video, I don't know whether your baby might be having a tricky time because their temperament is just going to take them a little bit longer to get used to life outside, or whether perhaps there is something else going on. So if your baby is a little bit unsettled and you're not sure why, then obviously get that checked out to check that there's no underlying reasons for that, any physical discomforts or anything going on for your baby or illnesses. But otherwise, on a general level, most babies love to be held because, like we said, that reminds them of being in utero. And they love to be bounced and they love to be rocked because that reminds them of that constant movement of the womb. And most babies love a kind of white noise, a background noise that goes on because that reminds them of the womb and the womb noises. And so I think we can understand from that, just during this fourth trimester, the first 3 months of your baby's life, if you aim to mimic that womb-like environment the best that you can, it will help your baby's transition to the world. So by mimicking them is all of those things that we said. That's why slings and carriers come in really handy, and just carrying your baby around will be the sort of kindest, gentlest way for your baby to get used to the world, because that's what they're used to. They're used to being held by us. We are their safe space. We're all they've ever known. And then they will gradually move further and further away from us as they get used to life. So during the fourth trimester, when it comes to the birth mother, a lot of what people sometimes think that if you have given birth to a baby, then you will automatically know what to do. And sometimes this is the case. Sometimes people naturally take to parenthood amazingly easily, and they have an amazingly easy baby, easygoing baby, and it's smooth sailing. I have another video about matrescence, which talks about the transition from a woman to a mother. So you can go and read up on that and all the emotional and physical changes that a mother will go through. But generally, for this video, it's just to say the fourth trimester is a time to look after yourself. That's the birth mother and any partners, anyone that's involved in the baby growing up will have a big transition to make. So fatherhood, motherhood, parenthood, it's huge. So look after yourselves, try and get as much rest as you can, say yes to all the support that you can. And for the birthing person in particular, the hormones that will be raging in your body and settling in your body will take some time to level out, and there'll be various peaks and troughs. So, and I will talk about that in another video as well. So the fourth trimester isn't a time to worry about routines and making your baby independent from you. This is a time to get to know your baby and bond with your baby and recover from birth and just be rather than do. So it's not about doing all the things and trying to focus on your milestones of things that are happening, as in things that you have to do or achieve. It's about just being, and I know that might sound a little bit woo-woo, but it's really important for your bonding with your baby and for your recovery yourself. Well, I hope that's given you a little bit of an insight into the fourth trimester, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks, bye.